Brian Bromberg talks about what could have been with Jimi Hendrix. I'm John Beaudin from Rocky Street Music. 2 weeks after Hendrix died, there was a scheduled recording session with Miles Davis and Jimi Hendrix. Can you imagine what that would have been like? What would have happened? And it's also because of that story that some people thought he was murdered. I don't really believe that, but we talked to Brian Bromberg, who's just released his ode, his homage to Jimi Hendrix, a re-release, I should say, called Bromberg Plays Hendrix. We'll have links to that in the description of this video.
You mentioned this in the Jazz Is interview that and it's a story I'd forgotten, the fact that Jimmy was going to record with Miles Davis. The real aficionados know that he wanted to do jazz.
Well, it's really funny you bring that up because for two reasons. One is that Bernie Kirsch, the recording engineer who did most of Chick Corea's records, all the Return to Forever records, all the famous Chick records over the years, Bernie Kirsch used to work at Electric Ladyland Studios in New York, and he said it was on the books. He actually saw it on the books that Hendrix and Miles Davis had a session booked, and that was 2 weeks after he died is when that would have happened. But there's a really great jazz piano player named Bobby Lyle. I don't know if you know Bobby Lyle, but he was Anita Baker's first music director. He's a great player. I just played on his record. You know, out of the clear blue, we're talking about his record, and he's like, yeah, man, I heard you did this Hendrix thing. And then he starts telling me this story about how he and Hendrix were friends. Bobby's in his 70s. And he's like, he goes, Hendrix, I was going to be in Hendrix's band. He said he was putting a new band together because he wanted to do more jazz. So he was getting some more jazz guys together. And Bobby was going to be the piano player, the keyboard player in the band. And they were going to start rehearsing and start playing gigs and start doing stuff after Jimmy got back from his trip where he died. And he's just like, I'm all ready to play with Hendrix, and then he dies. He also told me that he was getting more into jazz and he wanted to start getting some more of the jazz guys in his band to start going down that creativity, which, you know, for someone like him, it makes total sense. I mean, you listen to what he does. I mean, you know, he improvised. Every note he played was improvised. I don't think he ever played the same thing twice, you know? So I get it. So when this record, when this whole project came about, which wasn't my idea, by the way, no, I never in my life would I thought of doing a Jimi Hendrix record. I'm essentially a jazz bass player from Arizona. What the hell am I going to do a Jimi Hendrix record for? You know, even though I was a huge Jimi Hendrix fan my whole life, even as a kid, literally, you know, my brother, you know, he had all of Hendrix's records and I used to listen to him. And I remember when he died, I was 9. I just sat on the floor in the bedroom looking at his records and I was just crying. I mean, it's like there was something about him that touched me even as a single-digit child. I don't know what it was, but there was something about him that was so larger than life that even as a 9-year-old kid in Arizona, he touched me in a very unusual way. And the thing that was cool about the music, when I look back at it now more as an adult, you know, he had huge jazz influence in his music. There was a lot of stretching and a lot of blowing. And Mitch Mitchell's like basically doing a drum solo the entire time. It's like there was so much creativity and it was just like, wow, this is like jazz and rock at the same time. And then he would talk to you. He didn't sing, he just communicated. So for whatever reason, I was always moved by him and his brilliance. But I never in my life would I think I'm going to do a Jimi Hendrix record. So years ago, I was having lunch with a record company executive friend of mine from New York City. He was in LA. And just literally out of the clear blue, he's just like, man, you know, you should do a Jimi Hendrix record. Like, I almost dropped my fork. I'm like, what? What am I going to do with the Jimi Hendrix record? I'm a bass player. It's like, I was like, really? He's like, no, man. He goes, man, you should do a Jimi Hendrix record. He's like, you know, and I'm just like, he went right over my head. I'm like, really? You know, I changed the subject and moved on, didn't even think about it. 2 years later, I'm talking to another record company executive, friend of mine from Japan, from King Records. Out of the clear blue, he's like, you should do a Jimi Hendrix record. And I was like deer in the headlights at that point because 2 record company executives, 2 years apart, 10,000 miles away, whatever, said exactly the same thing, completely out of the blue on their own, which made me go, they obviously hear something and see something in me that I am just not getting, and I need to take this seriously. And that's how the project happened, is just like, wow, okay, let me jump into the music. And then I jumped into the music and was like, I could do this, and that's how it happened. It was really unusual. The music itself, like the changes in the vibe, that was easy. That was fun. That was just like, man, this is slamming. For me, like anything that I've done, I did a Jaco Pastorius tribute record. I didn't do anything Jaco did. I'm not going to do what they did. They were the icons. They were the ones who changed music. What am I going to do? I just got to make it mine and have fun with the music. I'm not trying to emulate what they did. It's just their music and it's my interpretation or just my impression of it. But so the basic vibe of like some of the Hendrix tunes were just like, oh man, these are just great jam tunes. They're cool. But I had a really difficult time in playing the melodies because, like I was saying before, Jimmy didn't really sing. He talked to you. He spoke to you. It's like spoken word on a completely whole other level. You can't replicate that on a fretted bass. It's like you take your finger and you put it on a string and play it over a metal bar. Boom. That's going to have a lot of soul in it compared to what comes out of Jimi Hendrix's mouth when he's singing something from his heart. There's no comparison in the emotion that comes out of a human being's voice when they have a message versus just like, I'm going to pluck a string on a metal bar. So the most challenging thing for me was like, how do I do justice to the melodies of the music? The groove and the blowing, that speaks for itself. But the music, that was the biggest challenge for me. And what I ended up doing was playing a lot of fretless bass because fretless bass is more like the human voice. There's no metal bar making the pitch. You can move it around. It's got soul. It's got vibe. It's got grease. It's got humanity in it, right? Where the fret doesn't have a lot of humanity and grease unless you're a guitar player and you can really, bend the strings and give it that vibe. On a bass, it's much more challenging to try to go there. Let's put it that way.
Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. And buy a t-shirt, help support our channel. Link in the description of this video. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music.